Chapter 7. 4.3 miles to go in the first race of the season. I told the guys that I was good. So I was bragging. And what was going to be the result? A glorious last by a long way. I was disgusted with myself. I urged my shuriken faster and faster. I kept to the right, as in not the same lane as oncoming traffic. That's one lesson I'd learned the hard way, and took care of the hills and around blind corners. But otherwise, I kept my head down and rode like a bat out of hell. The trees blurred into a mass of green and brown once more as my mileometer slowly but surely ticked down the tenths of a mile between myself and the finish line. As they clicked down, the time I had left to scrape myself some pride back got smaller and smaller. Finishing among the real prize money was now out of the question. I can be a realist when I want to be, but that didn't mean I was prepared to come in last. No way. Slowly but surely, the blurred specks in the distance became recognisable shapes. My race computer flicked a name. I was approaching someone fast. I glanced again. It was Gunther again. Squeezing every last ounce of power out of my bike, I roared past before he realised that there was anyone behind him. I guess he'd left me for retired. No one says dead, it's too much like tempting fate. Back at that hill, and I'd settled for 14th place himself. "Sorry buddy," I muttered under my breath. "You're not going to find player collecting any booby prizes." And on I rode. Faster, faster. I guess I wasn't paying much attention to my own safety, but when you're angry, you tend to find yourself with tunnel vision. Well, I do. A new name flashed on the computer. It was like some crazy video game, you know, when nothing seems real. But on I raced. In an instant, I was promoted from 14th to 12th. What the hell had happened? I tapped my computer. It defiantly maintained that against all evidence to the contrary, I was still in 12th place. Why? I hadn't overtaken anyone. Unless, of course, I was going blind. I quickly shut out the possibility. While you're hammering along a narrow road at 130 miles an hour, your body could give you a lot more positive snippets of information than the news of your imminent blindness. I stole a peek in my wing mirrors. Two tumbling bodies and bikes careered agonisingly along the road in my wake. That would explain my rapid and unexpected promotion. My heart began to pound once more, so I wasn't to be the only rasher with the bitter taste of gravel in my mouth that day. Sure, I was concerned for the two riders, but already I was learning that the only way to succeed was to look after number one. Still, the mileometer clicked its inevitable progress down, down, down. Time and distance were running short. 12th was good, but human beings always want more than they have. And hey, I'm only human. I could see 3 more riders ahead of me and I was approaching fast. My crash really hadn't been that bad. Relatively speaking, of course. I'd figured that no real damage had been done, but most importantly, my bike and I had skidded to a halt together. It was just a matter of shaking the clouds from my aching skull. A quick limb count, it's a good job there were only 4, my brain wouldn't have been able to cope with having to account for many more, and I'd been back on my bike practically immediately. A long run back to my abandoned bike would have wasted even more time, and I hadn't been busted. I only had $1,000 to pay any fines, and I didn't particularly want O'Leary's prophecy of meeting again to come true within 24 hours of him making it. No, I'd paid very little for what had been a stupid mistake, and Alex Player didn't make mistakes twice. The name Sid flashed up on my computer, indicating that I'd been gaining steadily on the 2 riders ahead of me. Of course, that meant his computer had simultaneously warned him of my imminent arrival. Great. The miracle of modern science once again comprehensively ruined any chance of a surprise overtaking manoeuvre. But, just ahead, the 2 riders were cutting each other up badly. I smiled. It looked as though I'd just gate-crashed a private duel, and that was fine by me. I waited until I could smell their exhaust fumes and bided my time. Without getting any closer, sooner or later I knew one of them would take a fall. They were scraping up too intensely for them both to stay upright much longer. Suddenly, as if on cue, one of the riders lost. He swerved right then left, but there was going to be no recovery. His bike somersaulted through the air and flashed past a couple of feet from my head. A split second earlier and he'd have taken me with him. I grimaced and charged flat out past the loser of the high-speed fight I'd just witnessed. As my ranking was promoted from 12th to 11th, the name of the unfortunate fallen rider vanished from my screen. It was replaced by the word Viper. So we meet again, I thought, except this time I'm ready for you. Adrenaline was truly pumping through my veins as I approached my rival at full pelt. I had no idea if I knew who I was, if he knew who I was. From what I could gather about his reputation, knocking innocent riders off their wheels was all part of a day's work to him. The roar of our engines crescended into one as I pulled up closer, but keeping safely out of the club swinging range, just to make sure, until I was about 5 yards behind him. A bend in the road marked my chance to overtake, and I swooped into the corner level with my opponent. I screeched out of the bend without ever coming close to him. I was learning how to handle these roads, but Viper wasn't beaten yet. I guess I hurried. Maybe I was just careless, but on the next corner I misjudged my exit and came out of the bend far too late. The front wheel of my bike started gobbling and grinding the earth on the side of the road as I slowed. The scream from my tortured engine dropping in pitch as I desperately threw my whole body weight into getting back onto solid tarmac. In an instant I was back on the road, but I'd suicidally lost my advantage. Viper had wasted no time. He'd drawn back level with me and our two bikes were neck and neck. Frantically I twisted my throttle tighter and tighter as we screeched towards the hill, like a couple of stallions towing a racing chariot. We drifted together, our foot pegs almost scraping. Suddenly I was scared again. This was fighting like no other fighting on earth. One false move here and it would mean real injury. My race computer status reported flickered from 10th to 11th, then back to 10th again as we roared along the road at each other's throats. As I glanced around, I saw Viper reaching inside a fold in his levers. I didn't need to be told what he was reaching for. In a panic, I eased sideways away from him, but there's only so far you can run sideways across a road. The road plummeted downwards, then rapidly climbed upwards again and relaxed into a long straight. 2 miles to go and nowhere to run to. In the distance, I could make out the shape of a car ahead, lumbering along the highway at our speed. In a matter of seconds we'd be on top of it, but in a couple of seconds Viper could well have scored his second home run of the day. Nice guys come second was a motto I'd always found particularly distasteful. I mean, I'd always come first, and I was a nice guy, wasn't I? Well, this was an emergency. It was time to meet fire with fire. Oh boy, I thought to myself, if Mother could see me now. She certainly wouldn't approve of what I had in mind. Viper was on the right of the road, I was on the left. The car ahead grew closer and closer. I pulled further and further left across the road, and I was almost scuffing the verge. If I could just time this right. Viper followed, just according to plan. He'd also seen the car, but knew that the threat of his club should keep me at a safe distance, allowing him room to overtake safely in between myself and the car. Sorry Viper, you picked the wrong guy. Just as it seemed we couldn't get any closer to the car, I swooped right across the road. It would have been suicide, it was risky enough as it was. I would have ploughed straight into the back of the car, if there hadn't been something in the way. A motorbike with a particularly ugly rider on top. In a split second I caught Viper a full broadside. Frantically trying to regain my balance after the collision, I watched as an astonished Viper was shunted sideways and ploughed straight into the back of the car, his arm still raised, club in hand, with an astonished look on his face. There was a sickening crunch as he hit the deck, big time. So long, buddy, I thought with a coolness that shocked me. But then the realisation of what I'd just done hit me. My lungs felt as if they were going to explode, as I frantically gasped for air. My heart raced as I tried to regain some composure. I tasted blood and I liked it. That was the scary thing. I didn't know how long I continued in that trance-like state, but sprinting along the tarmac, I suddenly noticed the buildings around me. Before I had time to realise where I was, I crossed to the finishing line in 10th place. I raised my arms and punched the air. I'd made it. I had completed my first road rash and I was hungry for more. Joy swept through my body as I laughed out loud. The tension flowed from my cramped arms and legs as I cruised to a halt. So I'd survived it, my first real race of what would turn out to be a long, too long career. I took off my helmet, shook my head and gasped in the fresh air. I could see Shiva celebrating on the winner's rostrum. A jubilant Slater bounded over to me and slapped me on the back. By some fluke, he was more amazed than anyone else. He'd managed to earn himself a place in the ranking and was proudly brandishing a roll of notes. Well done, kid, he beamed. I heard a vicious rumour that you'd wiped out at the start, he winked at me, but I kept my faith. Come on, I'll buy you a drink. Are you wandering off? I glanced. As we wandered off, I glanced back at Shiva. My time will come, I vowed to myself. But things were going to get harder, a lot harder, and I hadn't bargained on Viper sticking around to get his revenge. Chapter 8. The first ever road rash changed me. I can't explain why, not really, but I knew that I could never be the same again. Blazing a flaming hot trail along that stretch of road like a bat out of hell, hot on the heels of the 14 other racers, was a sensation that I knew I'd never be able to get enough of. I don't know, and as a way it was like being a kid again, I guess, stealing apples from some old woman's garden, or sneaking out your window at night to meet your friends, the thrill of the forbidden fruit. Sitting around the fire, back at the camp with Slater and a couple of the others, I'd try to rationalise my emotions. Okay, so part of the thrill was that rashing was illegal, but that didn't explain everything. Partly it was just the glory of pushing a race-prepared bike to the limit, and partly it was the feeling of belonging to an institution, almost being a part of history. Yeah, I think that was it. That was the hook. The few members of the public that I'd had a chance to talk with confirmed my suspicions. The road rashers were practically an American national institution. The locals talked of the first road rash of the season as they would talk of the 4th of July. Everyone just seemed to accept us as if we had every right to tear up and down the highways at suicidal speeds. And despite all the clashing of egos, bitterness and aggression between some of the riders, there was a very warm feeling among the group I sat with that evening. Slater and I finished our drinks when some of the other riders pulled up at the camp. They'd been celebrating in the village. After parking their bikes, they wandered over and joined us to swap notes on the race. Slater introduced me to the riders I hadn't met, and we said our hellos. There was Rex, Rude Boy and Axel, and a few guys whose names I didn't catch. From the other side of the campfire, a guy called Lester had caught my eye, and he continued to stare at me. Then he spoke. "So you're the guy that did that for Viper," he announced mechanically. All my eyes turned in my direction. I had no idea how Slater and the guys would react to this. I hadn't told anyone, and I figured that Viper certainly wouldn't have admitted to being totaled by a rookie. The fire crackled and spat as I attempted to figure out what I should admit to. Was I one of the good guys or one of the bad guys? I hadn't had that much time to think about it, but the way I figured it was this: you could either go all out to knock everyone around, but that would win you no favours in subsequent races, or you could make like a wimp and let the bad guys walk all over you, and that wasn't for me. Sorry, but if that makes me a bad person, then I can live with it. So, I'd figured on adopting a middle-of-the-road approach. If someone took a swap at me, then I'd give as good as I got in return. That sounds fair, doesn't it? And if these guys didn't think that way, well, then I guess I'd have to find some new friends. Yeah, too right, he was acting like a lunatic, I defended myself. Tell me about it, sighed Lester. Let me get you a drink, I figure I owe you one. As he stumbled off towards a tent, he'd got himself a pretty bad limp. The others demanded to know what had happened. But I wanted to know why Lester had been so sympathetic, and would the others feel the same way. I told them the story. I don't think I exaggerated too much, and at the end I looked around at my colleagues apologetically. What would they say? I mean, even I could see that it was a pretty low-down stunt to play on someone, and maybe Viper was a friend of theirs. After all, they'd been racing together for years. I was just a jumped-up new kid on the block. There was silence. "Congratulations, kid," grinned Slater. "That jerk's had it coming to him for a long time now, but I never figured on you being the one who doled it out to him." The others joined in his praise, and I breathed a sigh of relief. Lester returned with some drinks and explained how Viper had clubbed him while they'd been scraping for 10th place. He'd taken a bad fall but was okay. I told him I'd seen it all. Lester's eyes narrowed and he looked me up and down appraisingly. He looked up at the stars. "You ain't seen nothing yet," he murmured. I should have recognised the warning, but the night was young, and underneath the moon and stars I let the warmth of the fire and friendly conversation wash over me. I fully intended celebrating. And Natasha, I was just playing it cool. It's not that I was too scared to talk to her or anything.